Hello, guys, and welcome back for an episode I'm very excited about. I love having Alice on the podcast. I feel like she's such an incredible astrologer because, I've been following her for so long. I love her ways of explaining what's going on in the sky and beyond. And today I have her. And we are going to talk about the newest shift that so many of us have been talking about, Pluto into Aquarius, a little bit about Mercury retrograde, as well as the forecast for 2025. So really looking into what we can expect in the energy of the collective this year, this brand new year that we have ahead of us. I love consulting astrology for so many different reasons and ways. And I always love consulting Alice just based off of what I see and then asking her professional opinion and, of course, bringing her here to share it with all of us. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We already started talking and I had to be like, okay, let's just get into it so you guys could hear everything, because when I'm around Alice, I'm just like a wealth of knowledge. She's an absolute wealth of knowledge and I just love getting right into it.
I'm so happy to be back, and there's so much going on astrologically in 2025. Like, it's a huge year, so we're gonna have a lot to talk about.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
So I told Alice I first want to start with the transit that we just went through. So we're recording this at the end of November, and we just experienced that the final push of Pluto into Aquarius.
Yeah, so it had been back and forth from Capricorn to Aquarius since March of 2023, but as of November 19th this year, it's fully in Aquarius until the 2040s. So this is like crazy. A new 20 age kind of era.
So if we looked back at March, do you think that kind of gave us an inkling of what we're going to experience during this transit? Like anything we were going through in March
of 2023?
Yeah,
because it dipped in like March to June 2023, and then it went back January 2024 until I believe September of this past year. So we got a good chunk of it throughout a lot of 2024 too.
Yeah.
But I think we've seen like sneak previews just in like society trends and like world events, and how there's a lot of stuff going on like with technology, because that's a huge Aquarius theme, is like innovation and wanting to spread information and reach larger audiences. So with like artificial intelligence, that's a huge one going on. Also, I just feel like more people kind of being able to make a career online. That's a big trend I see that will unfold over the next 20 years, like working remotely, basically taking the power out of bigger corporations and like, I don't know, time honored like institutions, like these people who have had power for so many decades, and it's going to be more dispersed, and like anyone can kind of make a name for themselves.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
And I've shared like it's more power to the people, and that's an example of that. Like instead of needing a big name or a big corporation, it's like we actually have a lot of power to start things on our own.
Yes.
Right.
And also kind of Aquarius is a sign that sees change and like an ideal version of the world before other people might be ready to get on board. So it could be a lot of like promoting of change and like doing away with how things should be, kind of like getting rid of the status quo, basically.
I have chills. It speaks to my soul so much. Like when I first learned about the Aquarian age in training and my teacher training, I was like, this is why I came here, to be part of this time, because things can just be done better.
Yes.
And like sometimes when I hear in astrology, like change is happening, that sometimes triggers fear in us.
Yeah.
But Aquarian change does not feel like that at all to me. It feels like we're going to all just like take a sigh of relief and be like, oh, finally.
Yeah.
And with that, of course, there's shadow sides too, where it's like, oh my God, what is happening? But I think collectively as a whole into where we're really going, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, these changes were so necessary. And like, finally, this makes so much more sense.
I like what you said about, I'm so glad I get to be here during this time, because I truly believe like you chose to be here during this moment in time to experience this energy.
Yeah, I really do too. Yeah. When I found out that I had an Aquarius moon, I was so excited, because I was like, I just feel so deeply about Aquarian energy and positive change and this like ideal.
It's like why it resonates with you.
Yes.
So
I'm like,
much.
Oh, I'm ready for it. I'm ready.
I know.
So with that, I did start to get a little nervous, I'm not going to lie, because I started watching TikToks and a lot of what I saw was positive. But again, like when a sign in your chart has Pluto, it can be a little bit scary as well.
You mean when a sign in your chart has Aquarius?
Aquarius,
like meaning
yes.
So Pluto will affect.
Yes, exactly. When you're being impacted by Pluto, it's a scary thing.
Yeah. So Pluto will impact the signs of Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius, because those are all the fixed signs.
Why is that? I don't understand that.
Because if you have Aquarius planets, Pluto will directly cross over those Aquarius planets. It'll conjunct them. But if you have Leo, it will oppose them. And if you have Taurus or Scorpio, it'll square it by aspect. So it's making these hard, like dynamic aspects to planets in those 4 signs.
Based off of how it's going to move.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
But Pluto moves so slowly. So if you're like a late Aquarius birthday, like your birthday's in mid to later on in February, Pluto's not going to reach that planet until like the late 2030s, early 2040s. So it's not like everyone in all of these signs is getting the Pluto energy right in 2025, but the earlier planets and angles in your chart that are placed in these early degrees of fixed signs will feel Pluto the most.
Can we just talk about fixed signs, cardinal signs? And is there another one?
Fixed, cardinal, and mutable.
Mutable.
Yeah.
What's the difference and why are they categorized in those categories?
It's like based on the energy they present, they all have like kind of a similar vibe, I would say.
Interesting. Okay.
So fixed signs, which I just went over, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, when they're set on something, they're very like all in. Like they are very committed and can be kind of stubborn in that way. Whereas cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, those are the initiators. Like they really like to get things going. But then going back to the fixed signs, those are the signs that like carry things out actually. And then the mutable signs are Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius. And those are the signs that are the most adaptable to change. And they're more like go with the flow, kind of quick thinking on their feet. They don't get so like stuck in something.
So interesting.
Yeah.
And I can feel that. I can feel into all of that and like where it is in my chart.
Yeah. So you have a nice mix because you have like the cardinal sign, Sun of Libra. So it's like, okay, let's initiate, let's get something going. But then you also have the Leo rising and the Aquarius moon and fixed signs to carry out what you start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So cool.
Yeah.
So I shared with you before we hopped on that I was seeing a lot of TikToks about Libra, the other cardinal signs that are coming out of like this karmic cycle. They're moving out of it and they should be really happy about it.
I feel like that's such TikTok
I know.
language.
Like, how do you feel
don't
about
use that language.
Okay.
That has to do with the eclipses have been in Libra, Aries throughout 2023 and 2024. So finally in 2025, we'll get a last Aries eclipse in the spring, but then they'll be done in those cardinal signs of Aries and Libra for 9 years. So the cardinal signs are getting a break in that sense where there's not so much like change and huge transformation going on. But there are a lot of transits moving into Aries in the spring of 2025, mainly like Saturn and Neptune. So that I wouldn't say they're tough. I don't know. I don't want to like put it as like, oh my God, cardinal signs are going to have the worst year ever next year. But it's like there's definitely restructuring or needing to commit to something further and like more work put into something that will come up in 2025 for them.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And if someone is an Aquarius, where do you like say, I think I have Aquarius maybe in my 6th and 7th house, if that's possible.
7th. Yeah.
So what would you say for me? Like Pluto moving into Aquarius, it's in my 7th house. It's also my moon.
Yeah. It would be a lot about partnerships, like one-on-one relationships. So that could be the relationship you have with your husband, like the dynamic shifting somehow. But again, it's like over the next 20 years. Yeah. But also it could be about like forming partnerships in work and transforming how you relate to people. Like maybe if there's certain, like Pluto is a lot about shedding and inner transformation. So bringing those themes into the theme of relationships for you. So how are there like patterns you keep repeating in relationships that aren't working for you anymore and kind of wanting to like release yourself from that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So based off where it is, you need to know what that house kind of symbolizes and be able to see how you might be experiencing a rebirth, a death, a transformation in that way.
Yeah. And it may not be as dramatic as like this death, rebirth kind of cycle, but it's definitely an area of your life that will ask you to change and transform something. So everyone has Aquarius in their chart because they have that house ruled by Aquarius. So checking where that is and seeing, okay, how am I feeling the need to make some changes here at the moment?
So you say everyone has a house in Aquarius, but do we all have at least one of the signs in our chart?
Yeah, because
all of them,
all 12 one sign will rule one house in your chart.
Okay.
Because I work with whole sign houses, so that's how
Got it.
I do it. But so like you're a Leo rising, so Leo automatically rules your first house. And then that means Virgo, the sign following Leo, rules your second house. Even though you have like your south node in Virgo.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's not like a planet there. It's like the south node, but still you have like that Virgo ruled house.
Got it.
And then Libra is your third house, Scorpio is your fourth, Sagittarius is your fifth, and so on.
I thought I didn't have Capricorn in my chart, though. Is that possible?
It's your sixth house.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So even though you don't have planets in Capricorn, it still is associated with that house.
Got it.
And that house rules an area of your life.
It's so amazing that you remember like where even my nodes are. I feel like you truly connect with people through their signs.
I remember everyone's like, even people I met like 5 years ago, I'm like, okay, I remember your rising sign, so I kind of know what you're going through right now.
Yeah. But even to remember the node, like,
I know.
It's wild. It's so wild. Oh my gosh. So overall, if someone is like, okay, Pluto in Aquarius, I have either my moon, my rising, my sun in Aquarius, any tips you would share with them?
I would say remain open to change. I wouldn't fear necessarily, but just know that like you're probably going to go through like bringing up more intense emotions that maybe you normally like to avoid or don't look at completely, and work through them and release yourself from like things from the past that may still have a hold on you. I would say it's like dredging up everything that's kept repressed.
Yeah. Coming up to the surface to heal.
Yeah, exactly. Healing.
Yeah. It's a deep one.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we really wanted to focus on 2025 as a whole. I know that we're going through a Mercury retrograde now. We're in that.
Yeah, it just
How
started
did you feel
today.
about like doing this during that? You're okay with that?
I was like, this is
okay
interesting.
Yeah.
We got a delayed start, so I was like,
Yes.
okay, that's very Mercury retrograde. But I don't know. I feel like it's fine.
I'm launching a brand new app.
Oh my God.
In the midst of Mercury retrograde. Am I a psychopath?
What date?
December 4th is our target date. December 2nd or 4th.
I feel like that's fine. I mean, I launched my astrology business during Mercury retrograde. I think it's fine because the new moon in Sagittarius happens on December 1st. So you're coming off of that new moon energy.
You always say that.
Yeah.
I know you're always like launch something after the new moon. Yeah. I did not realize that, but I'm happy when it works out that way. Like so intuitively.
Mercury retrograde is not ideal, but because it's not the end of November you're launching. If it was end of November, I'd be like, seriously consider holding until December.
Okay, cool.
But I think it should be fine.
All right, great. Yeah. I feel like it's going to be fine. I just don't give it a lot of power because it is what it is. We have to live. I'm also reviewing a contract, like a really big contract right now too. I'm like, what? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
But you have to do these things.
You have to.
Otherwise, you put your life on hold and then...
I would say when you're signing a contract or entering into a new opportunity during a Mercury retrograde, it's like just remain open to, okay, maybe what I think is going to happen there right now may not be like the end result.
Got it.
So maybe with your app, you're launching it in early December, but then maybe once that retrograde ends in mid-December, like once we get into the early 2025, maybe there's something you want to change about the app, or like, okay, I need to make some adjustments here because what I thought would work is not completely like what I want to happen now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it ends at the end of December?
It ends December 15th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but then we have a Mars retrograde starting on December 6th.
So what can we expect for that?
That Mars retrograde, because Mars is the planet that represents like drive and energy and like what motivates you. Its retrograde happens once every 2 years or so. So it will start on December 6th, go until February 24th, I believe. So for that like 2.5 month time frame, it's a lot about reevaluating, like, what am I interested in putting my energy towards? And that may feel very confusing right now. Like, what is exciting me? What do I want to develop next? And I always say it's kind of better to just like stick with whatever's happening right now. Don't make any drastic changes in your life, because by the end of February, March, once that retrograde's over, you could be excited about something completely different that you can't even like foresee yet.
So when is that actually starting?
December 6th.
Okay.
It starts in Leo and it backtracks into Cancer.
Got it.
So it's like those two parts of your chart, Leo and Cancer. That's what will be the most affected.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And as Leo risings.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were saying before we started recording, like identity crisis type of thing, or like wanting to show up differently in the world because it affects the first house of the chart.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember when we met last year, you said the forecast for 2025 was a little scary.
It's like there's a lot of changes happening.
Okay. I remember you saying like volatile. Do you still feel that?
I would say yeah.
Okay.
Like for the US specifically.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Mainly with the US, why it feels volatile there is because we're coming up on the Uranus return of the country.
Okay.
So Uranus is moving into Gemini, I believe.
It just finished it's finishing its Pluto return.
Yeah, that was more so like in 2020, 2021, 2022, like the exact Pluto return.
Got it.
But if you counted the entire time Pluto was in Capricorn, like 2008 until 2024 was the Pluto return of the US. But yeah, the Uranus return is typically associated with like war in the country. I don't want to like get too much into that. I don't want to like scare people, but it does bring up conflict in that way. And so Uranus is moving into Gemini next spring. What's the exact date? Summer of 2025. And it'll be there until the early 2030s.
Okay.
So that's kind of the energy and why everything's been so tense recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I also think like sometimes when we think of war, we have this idea of what we learned in just like in the past in our history books, and today things can look differently. Like it could be a war frequency, but not necessarily, hopefully not like a war of what like our mind brings us to as well.
Yeah. Like with astrology, it's kind of like looking back at the past. Okay, what has happened last time this transit has taken place? How does that inform what's coming? But it's not going to be an exact repeat of what's happened in the past.
So I know a lot of revolutions happened the last time the US's previous Pluto return.
Yeah, that was the Revolutionary War.
Yeah. So what happened during their Uranus return?
So it happens every 84 years. So the last time it was US's involvement in World War II. The time before that it was the Civil War, and the time before that was the Revolutionary War as well. So it's kind of crazy.
Interesting.
How it lines up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a darker transit of 2025. I'm excited for all these other planets to go into Aries, though. We have Saturn entering Aries in May. Neptune enters Aries, I believe, very end of March. And then we get a longer Venus retrograde and also a Mercury retrograde in Aries. So coming out of this heavier Pisces energy, like where Saturn's been since early 2023, that's been very like mental health focused and has felt kind of confusing or like overwhelmingly sensitive at times. Having it enter Aries, it's kind of more sure of where you want to be going and being more direct and upfront. Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that, because 2023 and 2024 were really hard in that, exactly how you described. Like very much internal energy, inner dialogue, the growth, like the spiritual growth, the emotional growth, the challenges that brought that. And sometimes like there weren't even external challenges. It was all like within that I was dealing with.
That's very Pisces energy. And Saturn kind of shows where you're getting the most tough lessons at the moment. So it's with all of those themes you just went over.
Yep.
And now that it's going into Aries, it's more like, okay, I've done all this internal work. I'm ready to start something again.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and be more direct and like upfront about what you want.
I like that too as a Libra, because Libras can sometimes just be like, whatever.
Yeah,
Like here
exactly.
and there, but I want to be more fiery and direct and
That will get
stronger
you
in that
to
way.
embrace the opposite
I
of what
love
you are.
that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So that's Saturn in Aries. What other transits can we expect?
The Venus retrograde in Aries, that will be, let me pull up the exact dates, but I believe it's end of March. Begins March. Oh no, sorry, early March. So it's interesting because Mars retrograde, we get a slower start to the year energetically because Mars retrograde lasts till the end of February. But then the second that retrograde ends, we get Venus and Mercury retrograde at the same time, which is early to mid-March. And then both of those retrogrades will lift in the first half of April.
Okay.
And those will affect Aries and Pisces. Those signs the most, but also like the Aries and Pisces ruled house of your charts will undergo that kind of reflection and wanting to like restructure in those areas.
Okay.
Yeah. But the Venus retrograde is always about how can I change up like my creativity? How can I express myself differently? And also relationships.
Yeah.
So if we went back to like the last Venus retrograde we had in the late summer of 2023 when it was in Leo, there were so many high profile celebrity breakups, and it just felt kind of like publicized relationship drama going on at that time because it was in this theatrical sign of Leo. But it'll be interesting to see. I doubt it'll be like that again when it's in Aries, but it will bring up kind of a need to reflect on maybe like bringing those Aries themes into relationships. Like, how can I be more mindful of asserting my own needs in relationships and not just like always go along with what the other person wants? Kind of a balance of compromising, but also being more direct.
Yeah, I definitely remember seeing a lot of people go through a relationship, even friendships, like intimate relationships, but also friendships.
Yeah, friendships. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
And also Venus is associated with finances and money and like what you like to spend your money on. So that might be going through a change in the early spring of 2025. Like, what do you value spending your money on? That type of thing.
And would it shift towards more like airy themes or airy focused energy?
Yeah, it could be. Venus and Aries could be a bit more impulsive spending. And maybe when that retrograde hits, it's like, okay, I need to reel it in a bit or I need to be more mindful of my finances. But yeah, definitely that type of thing.
Yeah, because I remember, I think I heard like when the Venus retrograde was in Libra, it was more about like cosmetics, like people spending money on their appearance and beauty and those types of things, because that's more like Libra in a sense.
You mean Venus retrograde in Leo?
Yes.
Because there's only select amount of signs that Venus retrograde happens in.
Oh, okay. Why do I keep thinking it was in Libra?
It happens in Scorpio currently.
Okay.
So the signs it happens in is Leo, Scorpio, Capricorn, Gemini, and Aries, but shifting into Pisces.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're like born with those signs very like heavy in your chart, like Venus retrograde is always affecting you a lot more.
Interesting. Very interesting. I felt very impacted by the last one.
Yes, because that's your rising sign.
My rising.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe this one isn't as intense for you.
Yeah.
With like, who am I? Like, what do I want to be doing?
So when we see things in our big three, we can expect.
Yeah, I would also say,
shifts.
in addition to big three, the ruling planet of your chart. So Leo rising, the sun is the ruling planet of Leo. So that just makes Libra sun even more important in that case. Like for someone that's a Taurus or a Libra rising, you would look to like, where's Venus in your chart? And when is that getting heavily impacted by transits?
Wait, can you explain that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so all 12 signs have a planet that rules them. And so when you have this sign that's associated with your rising sign, it's like, what planet rules your rising sign and where is that placed in the chart? And that's very telling of what are other interests and passions that I need to lean into to feel a greater sense of self.
So you're saying Leo's ruling planet is actually the sun?
Yes.
So it brings me back to my sun in Libra.
Sun in Libra, yes.
But Scorpio, what's the ruling planet for Scorpio?
Mars. Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. So it's like, if you're Scorpio rising, where is Mars in your chart? And that Mars placement becomes so much more important.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. It like amplifies it.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's like when transits happen to that Mars for Scorpio rising, it's like that's not only affecting Mars themes of like where are you putting your energy, but also themes of identity and like sense of self, because it's associated with the first house in your rising sign.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think there's going to be like an overarching theme of this year of 2025? Anything that's going to be like really in the spotlight or focus?
What do you mean? Like, because we talked about Aries themes. I do feel like with Uranus moving into Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius, having that big emphasis on air signs, I just see like a lot of like rapid, like fast-paced developments with like technology, but then also like changes in general.
Yeah.
And kind of just like future-oriented changes. I don't really know, like I can't anticipate what kind of like new invention or what social media platform or whatever might come up.
Yeah.
But I just know that like we're on the brink of like some bigger change like that.
Okay.
With like creativity and the spreading of information.
Interesting.
That will be really important.
I can't wait to see how that evolves. Things have changed so much already in our lifetime.
Yeah.
That I'm sure in the next 2 decades it's going to be.
I know, it's like how much has already changed like since the 90s with the internet. I'm like, how can it change even more?
Right.
So
I know.
It's kind of scary.
It's so wild. It's interesting because with this Aquarius energy, I definitely see technology advancing, but like my soul just feels that there's going to be more connection between people, also in person though, not only through technology. And it's just something I keep feeling.
Because
is there
Aquarius is community and larger groups of people and wanting to find like your people that you belong with.
Yep.
And Pluto's also like where people are fearful of, or like where they're having like paranoia around. So having it in Aquarius could make people be like wanting to rebel against technology advancements and be like, okay, we've had enough. Let's bring it back.
That one.
Yeah.
I got chills with that one.
So that is very much something that could happen. It's like, even though the technology is advancing, maybe a lot of people don't like it and they're kind of wanting to fight back against it.
Yeah, I can see us as a collective like needing to make some choices and being like, okay, how far is this going to go? Like, what do we feel comfortable with and what are we like just not going to subscribe to and go like hang out over here together?
like putting boundaries around it for the first time, because I feel like there's never been like rules or regulations involving the internet really.
Exactly.
So that could definitely be something that's coming up.
Yeah, I can totally see that. So this year we had the eclipses in Libra.
Yes, Libra and Aries.
And Aries.
Yeah.
So what are we expecting for next year? You said there's one last eclipse in each of those?
Yes, so the eclipses will be in March and September of 2025. So in March, we have a first Virgo eclipse. It'll be a Virgo lunar eclipse in early March. And then later on in the month, there'll be a final solar eclipse in Aries. And then fast forward to September, we'll get a lunar eclipse in Pisces and a solar eclipse in Virgo. Okay. So they've shifted out of Aries, Libra, and into Virgo and Pisces.
I'm excited. Those are my nodes.
Yeah, that's your nodal return.
Is that exciting?
It's just kind of like, we mentioned this on the last podcast, kind of pushing you in the direction that you're meant to be going in. It's kind of like a check-in of, am I doing what I want to be doing in life? Like, is this what's most fulfilling to me?
Interesting.
And if it's not, kind of putting you on a different like path or niche.
So cool. I find it interesting what signs I feel best in. Like when there's a full moon in Virgo. Anytime there's Virgo energy, I feel the best there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Why is that?
What do you feel good about? Like, is it your career? Because that for me, with the Leo rising chart, it's always about like work and money and feeling more confident there.
Yeah, I think in career, but also just like this alignment within myself. Anytime it seems like there's an earth sign, Taurus, I felt really good. Taurus season.
I love the earth sign seasons. Capricorn too. I just love the grounded, and I can focus on my routine and get work done. I feel very like on edge or kind of a frantic energy during the air signs, or like coming up on the full moon in Gemini in December. I can very much like already feel that building of just kind of scattered all over the place or like overly stimulated. So that might be something you're getting during the air sign seasons.
And then water signs.
Water sign, least favorite. They're too emotional.
I know.
Like I'm already emotional enough. Some people might love them though, because it's like internal reflection, solitude, getting more time alone. but it's just overwhelming sometimes.
Cancer season is absolutely that. Pisces is a little bit lighter for me for some reason.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And then Scorpio's heavy.
Yeah. And that's what we're in right now. We
ended Scorpio season. Yeah, we're in Sagittarius, so fire sign season.
Mm-hmm.
And then Leo and Aries, of course, are the other fire signs. I find those very like creative and very focused on self and what hobbies do you want to explore? How can you express yourself differently? It brings the attention back to you.
Yeah. I think it's just so cool to spend time with astrology because I've been really interested in it for the past, I don't know, maybe 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And as you just pay attention to the moons and the moon days and the different seasons, you really start to realize patterns about what amplifies that good energy within you and what really brings out the shadow and the darkness that you have to sit with. And that's why I ask, like, why that is. Why do I feel so good during Virgo? But I agree. It's like that earth energy that grounds the air sign that I am by the sun. You know, my sun sign is air. And I think that helps.
Yeah, because I have the air sun sign too. And it can be a lot sometimes. So it's nice to be recentered.
Yeah.
But I like that you brought up patterns because that's my favorite part about astrology. It's like recognizing all these patterns in your life and how they repeat over time and how you can work on them each time they come back around.
Do you journal according to that?
I don't like check the astrology and then journal. I more journal just to like kind of connect more with my intuition.
Okay. Yeah. Because I do think it's interesting if I was to journal through each season and then go back and be like, here I am again during Virgo season feeling lit. Here I am during Cancer season feeling so sad.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
You know?
Yeah.
Because you recognize patterns and then it's empowering because you know what to expect. You know what it's going to bring up. You know it's not you. It's the influence that the planets have on you.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is temporary and we're going to get through it.
Well, I always tell people when they're first wanting to get into more predictive astrology and understanding like the moon cycle, for instance, I always say like start with the moon because it changes signs so quickly every 2.5 days. So that's something you could definitely journal about. Like, okay, the moon's in Virgo today. What's going on in my life? How is that affecting my chart? And then noticing how it's slightly different when it moves into Libra 2 days later.
Wow,
and just
really
tracking
cool.
that over a month-long period. And then also the next month and seeing like, okay, is it similar to how last month went with the moon in these particular parts of the chart?
I love that. I might do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know anytime that I have a day like full of appointments or doctor's appointments, I'm like, is the moon in Virgo today?
Yeah. Or Capricorn, your 6th house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would be another big one for doctor.
Interesting. Yeah. So interesting to see. So with the eclipses coming up, what would you say are the major themes? Like I'm thinking Pisces, I'm thinking spirituality.
It's interesting because we just talked about like how Saturn is leaving that sign and it was a lot, but I do feel like the eclipse is moving into that same sign that Saturn's leaving, Pisces, and then but also Virgo will help to bring greater change to those areas, but definitely like the spirituality, because the North Node is in Pisces, it's leaning more into the Pisces themes of like mental health, spirituality, kind of self-reflection, and then away from like the hyper productivity of Virgo. Like are there ways in which you just overwork yourself or like put too much on your plate, and how can you balance that with a need for rest or like finding deeper meaning in the work that you do? That's a big one with those two signs. It's like needing to be productive and face the reality of your everyday life, but you also need to have a deeper connection to what you're doing every day.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's important because that's where we find like purpose and value.
Yeah.
And that alignment and connection.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how do people's approach to work and just their daily routine, how is that changing over the next 2 years? Because the eclipses will be in those signs until I think the last one is in 2027.
This is so weird, but I'm having like a deja vu moment about that. I don't know if I read it somewhere, but that is exactly what's been coming up. It's like structure. Oh, maybe it was in your forecast in your Substack.
Yeah.
Maybe I read it there, which those are amazing, by the way.
The monthly.
I look at it and I'm like,
Oh.
I can't believe how much detail she puts into this, into each of
Yeah.
the rising signs. It's unbelievable. I love receiving them.
Yeah, it's a lot to write, but I just really want people to have that like mini reading
It
for the
is,
week ahead.
it feels like a full reading.
Yeah.
Like it really is
Oh, I'm
so
so happy to hear
thorough.
that.
And I may have read it there, but I'm also having dreams about this too, of
Okay.
like how my days are going to look, the structure of my days.
Interesting. Okay,
And
I love
I don't know,
this.
I've been dreaming about it, and like literally at night in my sleep, and I think I read it there too, which
Do
is
they look a lot
interesting.
different? Like you're about to make a big change?
I am thinking about making a pretty big change. I'm like in
Mhm.
the process of considering a leap, which is
Oh my
exciting.
God.
Still like the same but different,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
just something added, I
Yeah.
guess. But I actually have been having like dreams of like my old job and the structure of
Mhm.
days. Like last night I dreamt that I was teaching and I was running like I couldn't get back on that structure because I'm on a completely different, like it's a lot
Yeah,
about
yeah,
structure. It's so
yeah.
interesting.
That's really
I
interesting.
know.
Maybe it's you're feeling it more intensely because you have your north and south nodes in those signs. So it's a bigger like shift for you.
It's so odd. And I'm like, why did that even, sometimes you wake
Yeah.
up and you're like, oh, I know why I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I even
Yeah,
dreaming about
yeah,
that?
yeah,
It's so
yeah.
weird. So anything else for 2025 that you feel like
Let me check
we
my
should look out
notes.
for?
Yeah, I just really wanted to emphasize like the March, April time period is a lot.
Okay.
And then again in September when those next eclipses happen. But yeah, it's kind of a slow start to the year.
Last year too.
Yeah.
It was such a slow start.
Yeah. So if you don't feel like you're in the mood for the New Year's resolutions, or you can't just like get up the energy to do that type of thing, hold off. And I just feel like Aries season and also into Taurus season, that will be much more like there's more momentum supporting you.
Yeah. And that really aligns with astrological New Year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it also goes into, I just recently saw something on Instagram about our calendar and how if it was instead of like 30 or 31 days in a month, if it was 28, we'd be
Oh
synced
my
to the
God.
moon.
Oh my God.
And we would just be
It would be
like,
amazing.
It would be amazing. But this kind of really speaks to that.
Yeah.
Us trying to fit this mold of January 1st, New Year. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, actually, it's spring.
But also like a person's birthday is very much their new year because they get that new solar return chart and new priorities come to them. So do you always feel that way? You're October, right?
Yeah.
October Libra. Do you feel that way in the fall even?
Well, when I was a teacher, I did because it was like the start of a new year, like a new
Okay.
school year. I always felt that. But I think I feel it more in the spring,
In the spring,
honestly.
okay.
I don't love the fall. This fall is beautiful. It's amazing
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
like summer. But otherwise, I just feel like I'm going within. It's getting dark. Like it's not what I
Yeah.
love.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
not what I love.
Yeah.
You know?
So I guess those are the two you could go by, like whichever one feels more
Yeah.
right for you, like the Aries season or the birthday.
But in a sense, of course, it is like a start to the new year. Like I
Yeah.
definitely do feel that.
Yeah.
But I am way more excited about Aries.
Same. I like don't like the fall. I love the spring.
Yeah. It just feels so like renewal and rebirth and all of that energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what offerings do you have that you can share with everyone if they want to go deeper into their forecast, their personal forecast?
So I have my Substack, Astrology with Alice, where I do the in-depth, like super in-depth, 2,000 words per rising sign, monthly horoscopes. And then I also write like other niche astrology topics on like astrology of career. What else do I talk about there? Like relationships. I cover like all topics on Substack.
Yes. So thorough.
Yeah. So there's some free articles on there, but you can also become a paid member and get access to more. And then I also have my book, Trust Your Timing, which came out in the US earlier this year. And I have courses on how to start applying transits to your own chart and time when like career, relationship, home, like changes will happen then for you. And that's called Trust Your Timing, the workshops. And that's on my website, alicebellastrology.com.
I think
so
it's
much
so
stuff.
interesting too. No, it's amazing. All these resources. I think it's so cool too to when you're learning about astrology, almost doing it in hindsight too. Like looking at how things were when there were big events in your life.
Yes, exactly.
And it just brings like so much truth
Yeah.
to all of this.
Yeah, like if you're wanting to know about when you're going to date next, always look back at like, okay, when was the last time I went on a date with someone? Even if it didn't last that long, it still was something.
Interesting.
Or like with career, when was the last time I got a job? And predicting, okay, that happened last time. When is something similar coming up like that in my future?
So cool.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's anything we missed for 2025? Anything you want to add?
I don't think so. We
I feel like
covered
we
like all
covered
the
a lot.
major
Yeah.
outer planet transits, all the retrogrades. It's just like I see 2025 as a new chapter. It's like closing off this beginning of the 2020s, like the immediate post-COVID years. And now the second half of the decade, I see as something completely different.
So cool.
Yeah.
I have chills on that.
I
too.
know.
I'm excited. It's true. It's like that midpoint in the decade.
Yeah. And it's like very much shown by the astrology in this case too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alice. I'm so grateful for you to be here.
Thank you for having me again.
Thank you. This is so incredible. Thank you guys so much for joining in. I hope that this was helpful. And as always, astrology is a tool just to give us added insight and awareness over our energy and what we can expect, because sometimes there are planetary shifts that are happening that do have power over us. So no matter what we're doing here, we do have that outer influence. And it's just about understanding it, knowing it, and being able to flow with it rather than resist what's happening. So I hope this is helpful to you in this upcoming year. Please feel free to come back, listen in anytime that you feel like you need it, and be sure to follow along with Alice and all the amazing education that she shares in astrology. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you next time. May the longtime sun shine upon you. Sat Nam.